Welcome to Sixth Row Center, the best seat in the house for movie chat. I'm Heath. That's JD. Hello, JD.
Hi, everybody.
Today we're going to be talking about the 2025 gothic horror science fiction film Frankenstein, the latest adaptation of Mary Shelley's classic 1818 novel of the same name. There have been dozens of retellings of this particular story and literally hundreds of films to use some kind of Frankenstein monster in them or parts of the story. This version was written and directed by Guillermo Del Toro, who is no stranger to that sort of genre, with movies like The Devil's Backbone, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, Crimson Peak, and Nightmare Alley, to name a few. Frankenstein starred Oscar Isaac as the eponymous doctor, with Jacob Elordi as his monster, and a supporting cast of Mia Goth, Christoph Waltz, Felix Kammerer, David Bradley, Charles Dance, and Lars Mikkelsen, who is Mads Mikkelsen's brother. I didn't know Mads Mikkelsen has a brother. I'm a huge fan of Mads Mikkelsen, as an aside. But it was made on a ridiculous budget of $120 million. And as of this video, which is, to be fair, is only 2 months after its release, it has grossed at the box office $480,678, making it a huge bomb. You would be hard pressed to find another movie to lose as much at the box office. However, with streaming in foreign markets and all that sort of stuff, you can't really say it might make up its money eventually, but the jury's still out on if it'll recoup its budget. Let's say it's not off to a good start so far. Despite no one going out to the theater to see it, the reviews were very favorable. I'm one of those people who did not go out to watch it. I saw it at home. And while I don't want to give anything away, our podcast is still relatively new at this point, but I think this is the first movie that we're going to talk about that I can say I generally did not care for. I gave it a 5.4 on my 100-point scale, and I'm sure we'll discuss that, why I did that later. But for reference, any movie below a 5 is a movie that I would say I didn't like or is bad, a bad movie. And from about 5 to 5.5, these are movies that, while I'm not going to say they're bad movies because they didn't get below a 5, but I'm not going to say they're good movies. And that's kind of where Frankenstein fell for me. So now I'd like to bring in my partner in filmdom, JD. And JD, what did you think of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein?
Um, Very similar thoughts, but first I want to just correct something for the audience here. You said it got a 5 out of on your 100-point scale. You meant 10-point scale, right?
Oh, no, 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 no. Did I say that? It got a 5.4 on my 100-point
5.4
scale.
on a 100-point scale?
100-point scale. 1.1, or actually 0.0, 0.1, 0.2, all the way up to 9.9, 10. It's a 100-point scale. I
Oh,
gave it a
okay,
5.4.
okay, but the scale is to 10. There's 100 because of the
Scale is to
increments.
10, 1 to 10, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
broken up into 100
Just
points.
saying it's still like a barely above 50%
Barely above 50,
approval,
exactly.
but it's not at 5%. It's not a hard F.
But to me, a 5 movie is something. It's not bad, it's not good. It's so average, I would probably forget it as soon as I finished watching it.
Right,
If it goes below that, a 4.9, then it's a movie I genuinely did not like for whatever reason, or I don't think it's a good movie.
right. Gotcha. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
there were many things I liked about the movie. Guillermo del Toro, I pretty much liked everything I've seen of his. Based on your list, I see that there are a few that I have to go check out still. But I like his sensibility, and I liked it here. It was really, beautifully shot. But overall, I thought it dragged out. It was a bit heavy on the romance, and there are lots of things actually that I liked. Individual scenes that I liked, and aspects that I liked. It was hard for me to ultimately not like it, but it just dragged out so long, and the overall impact was meh.
Yeah, I'm a big Del Toro fan. I have seen some things of his that I have not really cared for. Did you see Nightmare Alley?
No, no, I did
I
not.
really didn't care for that. You mentioned some interesting scenes that you found to be memorable. Whoa, like what? Because I'm a little fuzzy on those.
Well, everything that like the whole. I don't want to give away too much, but the setup
Yeah,
with
I
the
guess this
ship.
movie did just come out, but it's an 1818 story that like everybody knows the story of Frankenstein.
But this was very different. There was no village. Well, like, there's no real villagers, and It was a very different telling. It might be more authentic to the book. I have not read the book. It's literally on my, I had it in my audio, what do you call Audible. It turns out that I had taken Frankenstein as a freebie, and when you cancel your account, you lose all the freebies. So
Uh,
I will read it at some point, and maybe it was more true to Mary Shelley's original story than some of the other more horror versions.
I was going to say it got lauded as being more authentic to the book. I read the book. I I I disagree. I mean, there's I guess some of the movies were really different than the book, but I didn't think this was that close to. In fact, there were certain things about it that were so different. That's like
Hmm.
it was a problem for me. I rewatched it just recently, just for this episode, and I will agree with you that some of the visuals were gorgeous. I mean, Del Toro really, he knows what he wants to do, so it has a look to it that is, it's beautiful. I mean, it was really shot beautifully. There was this one scene where, well, now I'm worried about spoilers, but
Yeah,
he's
no,
walking down a staircase in the mansion, the monster is, and
yeah.
he's carrying a woman, and all the people are around him, and there's like flowers falling from the sky. I don't know why, but and he's slowly walking down this staircase, and it's gorgeous. The beginning of the movie starts in Antarctica, or I'm sorry, in the Arctic Circle, north, not south, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeously
Yeah.
shot. There's this huge ship on the in the ice, and but I think one of the biggest problems I had, and I don't know if you saw the Robert Eggers Dracula that just came out a couple years ago. It was
I did
Nosferatu he
not.
did.
No,
It came out.
Nosferatu.
It was either this year or last year. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I know which film you're talking. It's on my watch list, but I have not watched it yet.
I liked it. I actually liked it more than I liked Frankenstein. But the biggest problem with that, as well as this, is that everybody knows the story of Frankenstein. Everybody knows it. How do you take a story and make it different enough that I don't know that you're like it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting, and I don't think Del Toro did that enough.
See, that's interesting. I kind of felt, and again, because maybe it's because I hadn't read the book, but I felt like he was trying too hard to make it a little different, to tell a slightly different story. I don't remember anything in the Arctic in any other version. I don't like, and even the science that they go into, right, which was cool. I liked that aspect of it, but it was also different. It was more detailed on kind of his character and trying to win approval and spreading the science on how to reanimate a human being. And there was just more of that probably was unnecessary, but also I thought was a little different. I do feel like he probably could have shaved the time by like 40 minutes or something. Like it was just too much, but I kind of was engaged. It wasn't quite
I think
the
those were some of the
Frankenstein
best
story I
scenes.
was expecting.
I totally think you're right. Those are some of the best scenes. The
Yeah,
scene where he's in like the college and all the people are around him and he's showing an example of the half of a body that he made come to life. I mean
yeah,
that was one of the better scenes. That was definitely one of the better scenes.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you caught it right with the kind of romance stuff that was going on between and this was not in the book, between Victor Frankenstein, Dr.
yeah,
Frankenstein, and his brother and his brother's fiance. And then the monster kind of is also attracted to her, and she's attracted to the monster, and this big entanglement of love that, when I say it, it's like, oh, that could be cool. But it like you were saying, it dragged on. It
too
didn't
much. It
seem to
was just,
work.
yeah, it did for
Two
me.
over
It didn't
two and a half
work.
hours.
Yeah, yeah, like way too wait for that story, way too long. And yeah, there's like beyond a love triangle, and it's super weird. Everything about it is both of the brothers are in love with the girl, and she likes them, but she's obsessed with the monster. Yeah, I don't know that she
Right.
was in love with the monster, but she's engaged, her mind is engaged, and they just want her body. Like it's a
And when you say it like that, it brings up a category that I don't normally talk about on my category list, but it's the bullshit effect. I mean,
yeah.
is that believable that she's
No,
in love with, right?
no, no. Like again, I get what he was going for, and to be a
Right.
little contrarian, and to give maybe if she had been the star and not Victor, and he had told that story, maybe
Hmm.
then I would buy it. I'd have some reason
That's
to think
interesting.
that her mind is so engaged. And maybe it's my male perspective. I don't know. But I totally was like, this is not, it is a high bullshit factor. Like it's not believable that she would even be engaged by him and other instead of horrified, if not
Exactly.
actually
Everybody else was horrified.
frightened. Yeah, they're horrified. What have you done?
Everybody.
Plus, he's a killing monster. Like you should be afraid. You should be afraid of him, not just because of what he is, but because of who he is, what he's doing.
In the movie, the monster doesn't kill anybody until the very end, although in the movie it's the very beginning when they meet up in the Arctic and he's like just
Right.
going
That's
crazy. But
yeah.
before that, he never actually hurts anybody. In fact, he gets framed for a murder.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I think Del Toro was he took a lot of pains to show the monster as a good-natured soul, and the Victor Frankenstein, the doctor, as the bad guy in this, which was different than the book, and the resolution was very different than the book. I mean, in the book, Frankenstein, I don't want to, spoilers, but Frankenstein doesn't absolve himself or say, he's sorry for all the different things that he's done to this monster. He vows to kill him till the end, but he can't because he dies of exposure. I mean, that's how the book ends. And then the monster, which is another thing that I don't understand. There have been a bunch of different Frankenstein versions. I've never seen one like this where Frankenstein is immortal. He can't die. You can
Yeah.
shoot him and stab him and cut his parts off, and he just I don't understand the point of that. And
Well, it
so
was
there's no
creating a
real end at
torture.
the end.
He was
I'm sorry?
creating a torture. It was a tortured soul. He was tortured by his immortality, the
Right,
monster.
right, right.
Right. So that I got. It did not make sense because Victor Frankenstein has not given him any powers that would make him immortal. Has
Right.
not even attempted to do that. Like there's not some superhero level magical thing that has happened that explains it at all. It's just, oh, because I'm reanimated now I can never die. They could have chopped him up and that would have done the job, you know, in
Maybe
theory.
not. Who knows?
Maybe,
Because that's the thing. You
maybe
just don't
not,
know.
but I'm just saying he wasn't like Terminator where he would just reassemble himself, the bad
Right.
guy from Terminator 2. Uh,
I think you know, what we were talking about, the scene where the scientific scenes where he's explaining how he's reanimating, that was great. But if you're going to give him these extra abilities, then maybe they should have explained why, what he did scientifically to do that. And he didn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
now that we're discussing it, that's an interesting aspect you brought up because there's another kind of bullshit factor. But to me, I'll be honest, in the movie, it didn't bother me because I thought clearly this is now it's a device, but it's a device to show that the monster is tortured and he's wanting a companion and and
Well,
it even
he wanted that in the book and in the
right.
movies.
No, I'm just saying, like
And
it fits. It fit. It helped explain that drive and why he would have that drive. Like he's like, I'm stuck here. Instead of just being suicidal, I'm a monster. Why did you create me? I'm gonna kill us both. And there's your whole story, right? But he had more depth than that in the monster. Like again, I
yeah,
kind of get, I don't mind where he was going, and I'm sure he's really has some symmetry at least with Mary Shelley on the goals for their story, but I don't know. It didn't work,
I don't know
unfortunately.
because in the book the monster was more of a killer. Like I said, in the movie he took pains to make him seem a very good soul, I guess you would say. But in the book he was angry about what was going on with him. Uh, He wanted a companion. It was similar to in the movie. He wants a companion. He tells the doctor, "Please do this for me." The doctor has this vision, sort of like in the movie, that the idea that these two dead creatures that he created would eventually have a child, and then that sort of it would create a species of horrible monsters that would propagate. And he was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I won't do this. He goes back to the monster and he says, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna make this woman for you, which he did in the movie. And the monster says, if you don't do this, I will be back to visit you on your wedding night and murder your fiancée, your wife, who she will be. And he does. He strangles her on her matrimonial bed and
Wow.
then runs off. And that's what causes Frankenstein the Dr. Frankenstein,
Yeah.
to go out looking for him, with a never-ending quest of, I'm going to kill this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what the story was in the book. So I don't know if there was any real symmetry with that, Mary Shelley and Del Toro.
He did take some license, but I think the beat is still there. The beat is still there, like
Yeah, he didn't kill her. The monster didn't kill her. Hell, it was, well, you know what happened in the movie. And the monster's framed for her death.
right, right. Yeah. Again, that also I thought was a little bit much. Like how
Total
now,
bullshit.
granted, again,
And
I
that's something you
totally
see in a
got
lot
where
of
he was
movies.
going. He
Right.
did not make the monster some altruistic, amazing hero, but he did make him good-natured, kind of as a base, right? Like not just self-centered, not just curious. Like he was generally a good guy. He was not enraged, at least not at first, only at the end. And he was really more enraged by his immortality than anything in the movie than anything else.
The last thing the monster does in the book after he discovers that the doctor had died is he, being a good soul, forgives the doctor for creating him and tormenting him. And then he says to the ship's captain, I'm going to go to the farthest point I can find in the Arctic Circle, and I'm going to set a huge bonfire and jump on, and that's going to be the end of me. And that's how the book ends. Very different. But that's the thing. It begs the question: what happens to the monster after the end of the movie? He'll live forever. He's still here today somewhere.
Well, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I thought in the movie where he's bringing up the companion thing at the end, or maybe I'm getting that out of context, but I almost thought that Del Toro was setting up for a sequel. Yeah, right? Like the monster isn't dead. It can be his search for a companion. Does he,
But how could he'd have to find another doctor because the doctor dies at the end.
or find a woman, a regular human woman
A
to love
regular
him?
human who would, I suppose, since
Yeah.
since the one girl did, there's
Hey,
nothing to say that another person doesn't.
he's at the end, he's an educated,
Right.
sophisticated guy, the monster.
It reminds me of young Frankenstein,
I was
and he
just
got, what's his name, tap dancing, Peter
right.
Boyle,
Yeah, he's almost going to put on a top hat and go out
putting on
into
the Ritz.
society, be a gentleman.
That's
I was
something.
probably colored also by so many different. I mean, Frankenstein was a cartoon monster when we grew up. Like it was so well told that you did. I mean, he was in everything. Frankenstein could be in
Abbott
Scooby
and
Doo,
Costello.
Abbott and
Right.
Costello,
Scooby Doo.
like everywhere. I'm sure Three Stooges, all
Three
that's
Stooges.
he could show up anywhere. Frankenstein was right up there with ghosts and vampires, right?
Yeah,
Frankenstein,
Dracula,
Dracula,
Frankenstein, and the werewolf.
and the Invisible Man and the werewolf,
Yeah, the
right?
Invisible
Like,
Man.
yeah,
One thing I think it's just I never saw there was a De Niro version where De Niro plays the monster. I want to say it was Kenneth Branagh who did the film and also played the doctor. And I never saw it, so I don't know how similar it was to the book or not, or to the 1931, the Boris Karloff that everybody thinks of, the big monster who can't speak and goes fire, that kind of stuff, which was obviously different than the book. But what the book had that none of these movies seem to have, and I think maybe Del Toro was going for it, was it's gothic horror. Gothic horror is so difficult to show on film because it's like a feeling of dread that you get. And you can get that feeling when you're reading something that you can't get when you're watching something. I don't know if that's what he was going for.
Well, and I thought he could have had that. He captured that in lots of scenes, all the stuff with the on the boat in there, all that relationship, all that captured it. I thought it captured some dread and some, but it just all the middle stuff, almost everything with that second family that he goes to and hides in the like all
Takes
of
him
that
off
could have just
track.
been cut. I mean, they
Yeah,
used it to explain how he learned so
exactly.
much, but it was
Right.
drawn out and took away from that feeling of dread. That was a time of peace for him, and he was almost happy. And even though he's living like a dog in the shed, he was happy. He was having a fulfilling life. And then you had
The payoff, of course, is that, he loves these people and they force him away.
right,
And that causes, more turmoil within him.
yeah. Like again, it all makes sense. I mean, that makes
I guess they
sense,
could
but
have they could have just condensed it and shown it quicker.
it's easy for me to say sitting in the peanut gallery, but I probably would have just cut out that whole storyline,
Wow.
found something else to achieve that effect, hopefully, or even just done without it. I'm not sure that we actually needed all that, except that you have an eloquent monster and you have to explain that at some point, right? You do have to, I mean, but you could have done that with a 45-second montage of them sitting at the castle where him and the monster and Frankenstein are bonding and learning and
Teaching him.
teaching. And yeah, I don't,
Yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
There were well, we both said that the runtime was very long, and between that part and then the kind of pseudo romance things that were going on between all the different characters. Even I thought the beginning part where they show Dr. Frankenstein as a child with the father, the overbearing father. And I get it. You want to show that his mother died. He really loved his mother, and that's why he was into that in the first place. But that could have been really condensed too.
It could have been, and now, yes, it could have been condensed, but I didn't mind that as much because you're setting up who Frankenstein is, and then
Sure.
how is Frankenstein's monster going to behave when his father is, who created him, is shaped by this life story and a resentment of his own father and the loss of his mother. But then we didn't get quite as much of the relationship between the doctor and the monster. Like the doctor's only one. He's like a almost tertiary character. There's the two women that are more important to the monster than the doctor is. He only comes to the doctor at the end because he's lost and enraged, but and can't get out of it. But if he could have stayed with that other family forever, if that had worked out, like he wasn't going to go
Yeah.
back to Frankenstein if none of that happened. And I thought they had set it up where you have this tortured and somewhat demented doctor doing crazy experiments to bring people back to life, reanimate the dead, right? Like he's driven because of this unique childhood he had with the psychopathic father, you know, whipping him and stuff like that.
Do you
I
think
don't
he
know.
was driven by the father's abuse, or was it because he wanted to bring back his mother's death?
Well, but the father's abuse is what put him on the path to medicine and gave him the technical ability to have done it theoretically. Like I thought that was fine. And again, like you said, I really enjoyed um, all the other where he's out pitching this to the other scientists and giving speeches and stuff, and they're calling him a lunatic and all that. And,
The whole Christoph Waltz character, I mean, none of that stuff was in the book. It was good. It kind of worked. I thought Christoph Waltz was actually the best character in the entire story. It's a shame that
he's
he
a
was
great
only in
actor. I
it.
mean, yeah,
He so is.
yeah, yeah.
Which brings us to the performances. I loved Christoph Waltz. Jacob Elordi, who played the monster, has gotten lots and lots of kudos. What did you think of his performance?
I did not like the characterization of the monster. It was too romantic and too sophisticated. So I'm not sure I'm a great judge. I didn't like the character, so his performance of the character, I mean, I guess was fine, but I didn't mind it. It almost again seemed like it was too much. You had this good actor, seemingly good. I'm not familiar with that actor, but they wanted to give him some range and some depth and some good scenes to really, chew the scenery with. And that just didn't feel right to me. Now, granted, I did not read the book, and I have the Boris Karloff monster in mind when I think of Frankenstein. So that's my fault. That's not Del Toro's fault. But
Yeah.
so I liked most of the performance. I didn't think there were any bad performances. Nothing that took me out of the movie or anything.
Definitely. No, I thought all the performances were excellent.
The ship
Did you
captain
have
was great.
that was yeah, Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
Okay, yeah, he was good. And the whole like before the monster even shows up, he's a hard ass and being like, you know, you're gonna do what you're told if we're gonna get out of this ice and get home and all that. Remember he's like the crew captain comes and says, "Hey, we're all cold and tired and we need a break," and he's like, "Shut the fuck up, get back to work," But then
Did you happen to notice that the woman who was it was Mia Goth played the love interest
yeah,
of everybody. She was everybody's love interest.
yeah.
But she was also in a hell of a lot of makeup. She was Frankenstein's mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which I thought was I didn't even notice it. When I was watching it, I had no idea that was her, but she played
Yeah.
both parts.
Huh?
Which
I did.
which maybe was why the two brothers were so enamored by her.
Right, right. Now knowing that, if I had recognized it, it would make a little more sense. I thought that was completely unnecessary. Why have a love triangle with the brothers in this horror movie? Like it was completely unnecessary. However, now that you mention it, there's at least a thread there that makes it somewhat interesting. Like
And yet neither of us
still
caught it while we were
unnecessary.
watching it. It's good makeup.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, I'll confess, and I told you this before, but I'll confess now on the show. It took me a couple of sittings to even get through the movie.
That
But
is, of course, the big pitfall of watching movies at home. I have the same exact problems. Uh, that particular movie I watched with someone, and when I'm watching with someone, it's less of a challenge to pause it unless like somebody really has to go to the bathroom or something. But yeah, lots and lots of movies I watch at home alone, and I'm constantly pausing and pausing, which is why it's a totally different experience going to the movie theater, and it's really hard to grade movies watching it at home and watching it in the movie theater. It's like, oh, it's the same movie. You should be able to, but it's a completely different experience.
yes, I agree totally. And I've not really thought about it that much, but you're right in that it's not just the comfort or anything, it's that you're forced to sit and watch it all the way through. Although, quick aside on that, I went I took Lily, my younger daughter, who's 15, to go see an anime yesterday
Ah,
at
what'd you say?
AMC theaters. Jujutsu Kaisen or something. JJK, it's
Never heard of
called.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the second one, and the other one was like some ridiculously huge hit, right?
Yeah.
But it was anime. She was there with her new boyfriend, and
Oh wow.
they're both
Okay,
15. They
Dad.
needed me to get them in because it's an R-rated movie. So I went with them. I sat behind them, whatever. But new movie going experience. So at AMC, they had free refills on your soda. You just go and
Huh.
pour your own soda, and then I think I saw people going with they refill your bucket of pop. I didn't get the bucket of popcorn, but I think that was a refill too. So in this particular showing, people were constantly getting up and leaving the theater. Like not just one or two people, it was a steady flow. And at least one woman in the row in front of me went out twice during an hour and a half long movie.
I think that is awful. Awful. If I were the ruler of the world, no movie theater would ever allow that. In fact, once the movie starts, the doors are fucking locked. You can't get in or out.
Yeah.
There will be like there's the bathroom in the seat, so you're screwed. If you have to go, everyone's gonna have to deal with it in the theater.
Now, I would, with the exception that you sometimes have to go to the bathroom, and I do often, I didn't this time, or I used to when I was younger, I got drinks and snacks, and I would get the big popcorn and the big Coke, and
Of
so
course, of
oftentimes
course.
I would unfortunately have to go to the bathroom, so that I would quietly, walk out and then
Yeah.
come back. And
I mean, I don't go to the movies that often anymore, but I have been recently. And when we saw Bone Lake and a couple others I was just at, and anybody getting up in the middle, you just kind of see it out of the corner of your eye, and it's annoying. Just fucking sit down.
well, especially if you're into the movie, if you're
Right,
completely, which is the whole point of seeing it in a theater, right? And
right.
you're engrossed, and then you get taken out of it. It's not that person's fault. I don't have quite as
Yeah,
strong
of course, of
feelings as
course.
you do, but they do. They take you out of the movie. And so this was, and not only did it do that to me, but I was like, oh, should I get a refill? Because I'd already drank it. And I was like, I don't need a refill. I don't need a gallon of soda.
I will tell you, and I mean it's so hard to say something like this, but I do believe it. Uh, the average movie watcher in LA is really into the movies. So that doesn't necessarily happen. But I guess I don't really see kids' movies too much, so kids might not be as apt to sit through a movie or whatever, or want to get, something to eat.
Well, it was also R-rated, so most of the people there were
Oh
not
wow, an
kids.
R-rated. Okay,
Yeah, it
okay,
was an anime, but it was not a kids movie. It was, I mean, super
right.
gory and stuff. And but it was to me, it was almost unwatchable. It was such a fast edit and it seemed like a little series of 30 seconds clips that were barely connected to each other, just shoved together into a movie.
Well, I will
I'm
say,
not the intended
technically
audience.
speaking, the sound and you know the visuals and everything, Del Toro did a great job in Frankenstein. I've said it already, but it was
Yeah,
really beautiful. The
I agree.
cinematography was gorgeous. These are movies like that, and like I was mentioning Robert Eggers' Dracula, which was so gorgeous. I actually would not have minded if it had won Best Cinematography last year at the Oscars. I don't think it did. I can't remember if it did or not. I don't think it did, but it would have been completely fine with me if it had, because it was filmed so beautifully. It was in black and white too, which really gives a whole nother atmosphere. Maybe Del Toro would have thought of doing that with Frankenstein because that black and white gives that gothic atmosphere, that horror, that kind
Right,
of dread.
right.
He did you ever see Pan's Labyrinth?
Yeah, yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth was excellent. There's a lot of Del
Amazing.
Toro movies that I love,
Yeah,
but that had that sense of dread. It was written into
yeah.
the story. The little girl's gonna die, the mother dies. There's this, war going on. So many times you think that the bad captain is going to. He kind of does triumph. I mean, he kills the little girl. I mean, it's like talk about dread. And I think you feel that in the book when you read Frankenstein, and it has yet to ever have been translated onto film. I understand what you're saying about the beginning when he's at the boat, and to me that was a lot more almost adventurous,
It
like
was.
an
No, yeah,
adventure,
yeah.
like an action film. He's going
Right,
walking around
right.
throwing people around and ripping some guy's jaw off, which was very cool, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But it doesn't fill you with that. You know, it's the story that fills you with dread. It's the you know the monster loved this family and took care of it and cut down trees and killed animals so it could have stuff to eat. And then when he finally, tried to, come up and say, I'm the person but they shot him multiple times and drove him away and left him for dead. That's the sense of dread. And yet it didn't work. Or it didn't work for me in this movie.
It did not get that
And it's
gothic.
funny because that's an important part, and we were both saying, he could have cut that whole sequence, could have cut the whole thing, and it might have made the
Yeah,
movie better.
but it would have deprived that,
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
saying, that what dread
It's
was
like
there.
what you were saying about the upbringing of Frankenstein as a child. You get the idea of his horrible, overbearing father, and that's something that gives people a feeling. You have a feeling of who this guy is and why he's doing. This was the part where you get that same thing for the monster. That's how it was written in the book. There were three parts, I believe. It was one told by the doctor, Frankenstein, just like in the movie. The
Yeah.
tale of Dr. Frankenstein, the tale of the monster, and then I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was a tale of the ship captain who they see up in the Arctic Circle. But
And
back
yeah,
to what we were talking about, the
but yeah,
performances. They were all
beautifully
great.
shot. It was too long to really work. It was not, I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. I would agree with you. It's not a bad movie. It's just too long. I
Yeah.
still overall liked it. We're being a little bit harsh because we're acting like critics, right?
Yeah.
But I would
Well,
not. I
so
probably won't watch it again. I would
that
not.
was the question. That was exactly what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either. How good can you say a movie is if you're like, yeah, never ever want to watch that again?
Well, I was going to say like if my wife wanted to watch it or something, I might sit with her and have my phone out or something. But I mean, like it was beautifully shot. There were some good scenes. Out of respect for Del Toro, I would also, just theoretically give it a second viewing because I'm like, what did I miss? Why didn't it work for me? And I
I
am,
completely agree with that.
I feel bad. I feel bad for Del Toro. I mean, he doesn't need our sympathy. I'm sure
Yeah,
he's going
yeah.
to be just fine, right? But
I'm
to hear that
curious
he
to see
lost a
how it's
hundred
going to
million
do
dollars,
on
ouch.
Oscar season. This is the
Yeah.
sort of movie that, the critics, like I said, the critics loved it, even though maybe the general audiences didn't, or at least they didn't enough to go out and support it.
But they didn't support anything, according to what we're told.
Exactly,
Like
just like you said. Yeah,
everybody was bombing, and most people did not spend $100 million. So,
right.
you know,
Yeah, again, this is the sort of a movie that I find difficult to grade because there are so many things about it technically that were great. Like we said, the direction and the visuals and the sound and the audio and the music was really good. The score was beautiful and so much stuff like that. And the performances were really good. So you've got all that very high, and then the story for me low. But how low could you put it? Because it wasn't horrible. So yeah, what really got me was the overall feeling, more than
yeah,
anything else. Uh,
yeah.
Gave it a lower, yeah. Like,
I would
yeah,
have
I
never
don't,
thought this, but I'm intrigued now to think about the idea of creating a Frankenstein that's all dread and not quite so much horror, like gothic horror, where it's not jaws being ripped off and guys being shot and getting back up and granted, I did not feel like he was doing doing a slasher movie, right, at
right,
all. But
right, sure.
nonetheless, a big part of it is the monster just keeps coming, and they killed it, and they got back up, or they shot it, he got back up. They threw it into the water, and somehow he sank. Like, how did he even physically come back up? Granted, he's immortal, but why is he
Right.
not frozen at the bottom of the ocean like Captain America, waiting for Tony Stark to come?
I feel I don't know because I don't know Del Toro, but it's like he felt like he needed to put these things in to draw audiences, because modern audiences won't come to see a story that doesn't have action in it, maybe.
Well, I yes, maybe, but I did get like you mentioned this earlier, and I totally got this at the time. Like this to me, it worked despite I'm again giving some criticism here, but that whole scene felt to me like this is the enraged monster at his end, at his wit's end. Like I did, and especially again, they go way out of the way to set up that he was good natured by default. But even with none of that yet built in, I still got the this is the monster's coming for Victor, and he's enraged, and he doesn't hate the ship, he doesn't hate the sailors, he doesn't hate the ice, he hates Victor. He's here for Victor, and that's it. And he's one other thing though. Remember how ridiculously strong he was?
Yeah,
There were like
yeah,
50 men trying to get the boat out. They couldn't budget, and he just comes
yeah,
along and
yeah. That was real bullshit factor.
that was
Again,
even more than the
it's the
other
same
stuff,
thing.
which at least the other stuff was set up for him to be this romantic monster and all that. But this was out of nowhere. He just suddenly also has super strength. What about the reanimation process gives him
Yeah,
super strength?
it would have been okay almost if somehow it was explained, but it never was. So it really wasn't okay. The same thing with him being immortal. He was created out of dead soldiers, and yeah, sure, you're going to find the best specimens. He talked about that. And so
Yeah,
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 he would be the
yeah,
upper echelon strength of a human, But yeah, he was
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Two or three average men, like Arnold
Sure.
Schwarzenegger, is probably stronger than three average men, but not fit, not enough to shove a whole
Of a
ship,
ship,
giant
yeah. And
wooden
a ship that was
ship,
icebound. Yeah.
icebound wooden ship that they, as a crew, couldn't get out, and he just like, yeah,
In the book, he was more like this monster from this movie.
yeah,
He was big and he was strong, but he was also he was very humane. I think that's the point of it, is that the monster was more humane than the doctor who created him.
right,
And
right.
I think that's the point of the book. That's the whole point of Frankenstein, period. I had sympathy for the monster, but I didn't really have sympathy for the monster. How can you have sympathy for somebody who's immortal? You know? Yeah, he's being tortured. And I guess, like you said, the whole immortality was his torture. But I mean, if he's got forever, can't he turn things around and be happy? He says it at the end of the movie. He's like, for you, Dr. Frankenstein, your life is a tiny little thing, and you'll fade away and be gone. And you don't have to worry about these things where I have to worry. Well, you've got forever. You can do whatever you want.
Well, but they didn't go into that much detail. I mean, they did set up this idea that he's immortal, but they didn't say that he couldn't be burned to death or just chopped up into a million little pieces, and that would do the trick. Like, so he
I'm
might
not
not
sure. I'm
be
not
able
sure about
to.
that because in the movie, uh, different things happened to him, and he seemed to regenerate at one point. I don't remember what happened, but his eye was all no skin on it and stuff, and he looked horrific, more horrific in his face than just the parts all stitched up, and then that healed. He
Oh, okay,
had
I didn't
different.
catch
There was
that.
at one point he takes a stick of dynamite and blows himself up and says, "Yep, see that didn't do anything either." So I don't know. I kind of think it was set up that he's supposed to like literally never die, no fire, no chopping him up. He would just regenerate. If there was a little piece of him, it would grow out of that. But that's what I got the
I
feeling
forgot
from.
about the dynamite. So you're right. You're right. It
Yeah,
was it
yeah. He like
was it
literally
was
blows
pretty
himself up.
explicit that he. It's interesting though because he can be hurt. He just can't be killed. He'll heal and just keep coming.
When the family drove
But
him
then,
away,
if
they
that's the
shot him a bunch
case,
of times. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
if that's the case, then you're right. Why wouldn't he just be like, okay, well, this didn't work out. I'll go one whole country over and start over, Or guess what? I'm super strong. I'm immortal. It might be hard, but I'll eventually find somebody.
And he shows himself to be pretty intelligent and reliant. It's like it's a different
Exactly.
story if you do it Del Toro's way than it was in the book. And I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but
Yeah.
I don't think Del
Yeah.
Toro wrote a compelling story
Yeah.
off of the source material.
Yeah.
There have been all sorts of Frankenstein movies and ideas with Frankenstein. I know there was one that was called Frankenstein Unbound. I never saw it, but I remember the preview. There was
Yeah.
another movie that I watched once a long time ago. I've always wanted to rewatch it. I saw it like as a teenager or something, and I want to say it was called Haunted Summer, but I'm not positive that that's the name of the movie. And it was the writing of Frankenstein. Do you know about the writing, when Frankenstein was written?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All
The
these
three
people got
poets all
together.
together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all the poets got together and did it as a
Yeah.
contest,
Right.
and it was really good. Yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff about Frankenstein and different. There was a Frankenweenie, if I remember correctly, about a
Yeah.
Frankenstein dog.
Yeah.
They've done it to death.
Which is
But
interesting. I guess it's there's no rights issue at this point. Because think of
yeah,
it,
maybe it's part of the
there's a freaking Frankenberry cereal. There's, like
right, right.
he's completely iconic, Frankenstein, Like,
Yeah, I don't know that Mary Shelley had any kids. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think she did, because I know her husband died really young. He was like 30 when he drowned.
huh, he drowned.
Yeah.
So overall, it sounds like we both agree almost guiltily that it didn't work,
Yeah,
even though there
yeah,
was a lot to like about it, and I hate to say
yeah.
that, but it just didn't work.
So I think we're going to wrap things up. Do you have anything more you would like to add about Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro?
No, we said it 100 times.
We
Beautifully
have covered it
shot,
all.
but unfortunately disappointing. Cannot recommend it.
Well, then that's going to do it for us from the Sixth Row Center, and we will see you next time. Bye.